Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to be having a look at the Masterverse, Masters of the Universe Revelation King Grayskull. Now this is a figure I've been looking forward to for quite some time, and I do believe it is a Target exclusive. This is more of the deluxe type of figure that runs right about $30, sometimes even on sale as he was recently for right around $26.99 at Target. I believe that's on sale this week. King Grayskull was a character that was created for the 2002 He-Man animated series from Mike Young Productions. He was based more on the Four Horsemen's original concept for an updated He-Man for the 2000s. The original idea had He-Man looking much more barbarian-esque, with longer hair and some extra little touches and kind of bigger and beefier. They decided to make it He-Man's ancestor from the days of Preternia. And with that in mind, he does look in that original version kind of just like a bigger, bulkier He-Man with a cape and long hair. As time has gone on, King Grayskull has been reinterpreted here for the Masters of the Universe Revelation series to look very different. He's now black, and some of the elements of his costume have changed a little bit so that he's not just another version of He-Man. I was really pleased with the way that he was portrayed in the show, so it made me very excited to get a hold of this figure. And of course, we'd really appreciate it if, before we get too far into the video, if you would subscribe. It really does mean the world to us here at Fanboys Forever, and we've seen a lot of growth lately, so we really do appreciate that. It would also be much appreciated if you like the video, because it does help YouTube to share it out. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the figure and the packaging. You can see that at the bottom it just says Masters of the Universe Revelation, King Grayskull. There's the figure in the box, of course. Up here we have the always bizarre decision to have the barcode right there at the top of the package. Masterverse and all those little glyphs. This is the same style of box that you'll see like Triclops in, or say for instance Faker or something like that. It just has his name. He's the heroic ancestor of He-Man. We have the always phenomenal artwork that we see in so many of these releases, and King Grayskull's painting here is no exception. I just wish it were more prominently featured on the front of the box, because it's not featured at all. On the back, we have more incredible artwork that will just hurt your heart to know that it's not featured on the front of the box, and we have a really cool bio. And on the bottom, we have a cross-sell of some of the other deluxe releases and a few of the more recent basic releases from the line, all of which are themed to Revelation. At the bottom, we do have the barcode, if that helps anybody out, and just a little tiny bit of instruction that's funny. It's printed on the bottom of the box, just showing you, hey, you can trade some of the accessories out. Made in Vietnam. Let's go ahead and open up King Grayskull. And here he is, Revelation King Grayskull. This figure has been just some fantastic fun since I've had him out of the packaging, and I've just been having a blast posing him around, and I can't wait to tell you all about him. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First things first, we'll have a look at the sculpting on the figure, and there's just so much to talk about. You'll notice right away that this is an extremely accurate visual representation of the character from the Netflix series, Masters of the Universe Revelation. Of course, spoilers for the show. If you haven't seen it, you can skip ahead about 10 seconds. But this is for when he goes to the afterlife of Preternia and he meets his ancestors, including all the people who have held the title of He-Man, including King Grayskull here. Just an incredible representation of the character. I'm really liking how the body sculpt looks. I'm liking how all the accessories, the lighter shade of fur, and yes, the soft goods, which we're going to get into. I like how it all comes together to make just a visually interesting figure. Now, this is his angry head sculpt that he comes packed with, and I think it turns out really, really well. You can see he kind of has his teeth gritted there, and they're all individually sculpted, so that's nice. And then the facial expression is really cool with a very straight eye tamper graphic there, so it looks really nice. I'm really liking kind of the more dreadlock sort of look, and especially how they're bound up in the front. The paint isn't exactly perfect on the red one over there to my left, but it's okay. On the back, you can even see that he has a He-Man kind of logo for the gold thing that's keeping his hair together, the hair clip, I guess, and this ponytail. So it's really cool, especially how it goes through the soft goods, and there's the back of the cape. Speaking of the head, it does come with an alternative head. All you have to do is pop this guy off. Since the other head is so extreme, it's a really good thing that they include this much more neutral and calm head, because this is the way that he's presented mostly in the show. So it's great that you have that option. And I think I like this one even a little bit more. It's just indicative of his kind of calm demeanor in the show, so I think it's really cool. If you read any of the tie-in comic book that they did that was like a prequel to Masters of the Universe Revelation, and thanks to my friend TJ, shout out to him, He let me read the first couple of issues of that, and you could see him in a lot more like action scenes while King Grayskull was still alive in the ancient past. So it's great that you get the other head to recreate some of those battle scenes with the Orlux. Another thing is how all of the soft goods work, and it's kind of interesting. You can see in the back that we have this really cool cape, and what's amazing is that they have this really neat pattern cut into the bottom of it. Very He-Man-esque shapes going on here, and I think that's great. So all flailed out, this cape is pretty spectacular looking. Kind of have some Batman stuff going on here like this if you really want to, and from the front it looks pretty wild as well. Now what's great is that you have this wire sewn in on both sides right here. So you can do all sorts of windswept poses, which is kind of my favorite thing, I think, to do with them right now. So you can have both ends kind of flowing in the same direction. Another interesting thing about the way that this works is if you take the head off, you can see that he has this fluffy kind of mane on the cape. And what's interesting is this is all held on with a Velcro strip. So you just unvelcro this, and it's attached on one side. You can then run it a little further up and adjust how far up you want the fur. That means if you want to, you can bring it up to about this level, lay it back down, simply take the Velcro, bring it through, clasp it back down, and the same over here. Now you can have the fur up here much more. Once you do that, you can bring it up much more. I think I like the look of it being a little more prominent. It's also one of those rare options where I personally think the soft goods was a much, much better option than going with just the plastic or rubber sculpted fur on the top. I think this actually looks really good, and it's a much more authentic looking way to replicate something like a fur collar around a cape. But of course you can adjust it however you like, but I think it looks great from all angles, even from the back with the hair coming down through the fur. Let's talk about accessories just a little bit. He does include the two halves of the power sword. This is what the power sword actually looks like once the two halves have been separated. I really like this because this is a great callback to the Masters of the Universe 2000X series, where the power sword could be split into two halves that looked a lot like this. You can see this end is pretty traditional looking, almost looking like flames as the gold goes up. But this one is a little less traditional with kind of a bumpy handle. And even to the top of it, you kind of have this cool curved blade. So I really do appreciate that they actually went to the trouble of making these distinct, and they varied them up quite a bit. Of course, King Grayskull does come with the prerequisite alternative hands, coming with a fisted hand over here for his right, and of course an open left hand. He also comes with this awesome shield. Now what's great is that his chest harness and the shield both feature much more of the kind of emblem that we saw on the 2000X He-Man from that series, so it's a great way to carry the legacy of that show and continuity forward. All you gotta do is take the open hand, put it through right there, and as you can see, after fitting the strap through, it goes in the open hand, and now he is all armed up and ready for battle, albeit you can't use both swords at once you have the other hand occupied by the shield. However, I suppose you could swap out the holding hand right here and not worry about this extra strap and have him hold the sword while also holding the shield, but I think that's a little bit of a busy look, and I would rather just have him hold the gold half of the sword like this. We won't spend too long talking about articulation, as it's pretty much the same kind of stuff you've seen before. He-Man's head is very inhibited by the fur collar right there, so you really can't turn it too much, and if you do, it kind of disrupts the fur, but you can pull that back like I was showing you earlier, where it's way out of the way. So it doesn't have to be in the way as much as I have it, but I think it's worth the sacrifice to have the fur more prominent. He can also put his head up, but the braids in the front kind of come off the chest and don't look quite natural. You can put it down a little bit, but that was mostly the ab crunch doing that heavy lifting. Speaking of the ab crunch, it's just as great as He-Man and Skeletor's, and it is very, very effective. You can also see that he does have those shoulder hinges that we're used to seeing with the standard figures. His shoulders can go all the way up to, and because this is soft goods, it will work with you, and you just kind of have to futz with it a little bit and work with it to get it to look natural. You can also see he has a bicep swivel, he has a double jointed elbow. There are hinges on all of the alternate hands, although I wish the hinge went the other way for more of the holding the sword aloft poses. He does have a waist swivel like they always do. He can do the splits, and he has terrific range with that. He can do a really mean kick, and I think that's pretty good for a character wearing a loincloth. Same thing on the other side. He does have a swivel right here at the thigh, and then a double jointed knee. He does have a boot cut and some ankle joints here some hinges that are maybe not quite as tight as they need to be because I have had some trouble with them falling over. But for the most part, they work pretty well, and I'm fairly satisfied with them. I might end up tightening them ever so slightly, maybe with some furniture coating of some sort. We definitely have a good opportunity for a couple of comparisons here. The one that I'm the most anxious to do is the one with Masters of the Universe Classics King Grayskull. I was one of those crazy people that bought the original edition of this guy when he had the brown cape. However, this is the later version that they did with more of the red cape, which I actually prefer anyway, just because it gives him a little more color. And of course, they ended up adopting the red cape over here. It's funny to see these guys side by side, considering that this guy was sort of a supersized Masters of the Universe Classics figure, as his, I believe the boot parts were a little bit longer to make him appear slightly taller than He-Man. And it's funny because he's still not quite as tall as this new King Grayskull figure. If you're somebody who's upset or worried because they changed King Grayskull, doesn't bother me in the least. As a matter of fact, it gives him a little bit more uniqueness, and instead of just being kind of a bigger He-Man. And I really like that, and I think it's a terrific visual. There's almost a more authentic quality about it, so I really do like it. I have no problem with it. And of course, deep in the Masterverse, you can find either version of King Grayskull, so it's not like one replaces the other. Of course, in terms of Masters of the Universe Revelation, we definitely want to see King Grayskull alongside his descendant, and yeah, I think they look good together. Depending on how you pose them and how you stand them, they're actually exactly the same height, which I suppose does make sense for this continuity as He-Man and King Grayskull. I guess it's the same kind of power-up or whatever. It's funny because people have talked about He-Man being kind of pin-headed on these bucks, but it's not really a problem for King Grayskull. I don't know if it's the cape. I don't really know what it is. But in some ways, it makes me think that, who knows, maybe this He-Man's head was a little too big because it made him look a little scrawny, whereas this King Grayskull's head is a little smaller, but it makes him look so much more buff. So I don't exactly know what's going on. I'm not sure if it's just all in my head or what, but it's kind of an interesting effect. They look okay together, though, but He-Man kind of seems almost like part of a different line because they've come quite a ways in terms of quality. Of course, here is our new Eternia He-Man, and I actually think these guys look more appropriate together, as He-Man has more of that classic look, and I think this King Grayskull honestly looks less animated than he does a little more gritty, like that original old artwork. So I actually think these guys look really cool together. And you can see there that the ankles sometimes give out, so that is something that you'll have to watch out for with your particular sample. And just for fun, we'll go ahead and put Revelation Skeletor beside of him, who's a little bit shorter. And since sadly there is yet to be a Bionatops in this toy line, and maybe there never will be, yes, you can have him ride on Battle Cat, and it looks really good. In the end, what can I say? King Grayskull here is an absolutely epic deluxe figure. He has so many great little premium touches that are the kind of things that I like to see in a deluxe. Some really nice soft goods that don't just feel like they're thrown in just because. He has some very cool weapons. He has a really nice alternate head so that you can use in more of your battle style dioramas. And he's just a very cool looking figure. One of the better soft goods implementations I've seen in a long time on a figure. And also the wire in the cape, which is just so versatile and you can do so many crazy things with it. As funny as it is to say, the cape alone is enough of an argument to go ahead and pick up this figure. I know that not everybody is a huge fan of the concept of King Grayskull himself, but I'm telling you, even if you've never bought into that before and it's something you're a little unsure about, this is one of the coolest He-Man figures that you can possibly own. And I think the $30 price tag is just about right, with the really expanded soft goods, the extra accessories, and just the overall bulk of the figure. I think it's priced appropriately, especially at the $26.99 price that sometimes he's been going on sale for. Remember, I picked this guy up at Target. Friends, I sure do hope that you've enjoyed this review. I'm a huge fan of King Grayskull and Hero and Titus and Megator and all of the other characters from Preternia. So this was a big deal for me. I really hope you've enjoyed the review, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss out on all the other great He-Man videos we have coming up. And of course, we'd appreciate it if you could like the video, as it really does help the channel grow. And as always, friends, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out. It's almost kind of a Spawn vibe, isn't it?